human. Welcome back to A Cult of Misfits. I'm Matt Owens. I have a niece that always says "Hello, human" every time she sees me, and I'm very amused by it, and so I'm stealing it. I love it. So, hello, human. If you're not aware, got a new podcast episode. You can check them out. A Cult of Misfits on Spotify, Apple, just basically everywhere you find a podcast. Unless you're listening on like AOL podcasts, and then I don't know what to do for you at that point. Is that even a thing? It probably is. So I'm not on there, but all the other platforms you can check out my latest episodes. In the last one, I talked about pyramids and these ancient monolithic structures worldwide and how they make no frickin' sense, how they built them or constructed them or transported the rocks, etc. So I do a deep dive into that topic if that is of interest to you. And today I want to talk about the fun and exciting, everybody's favorite topic, anxiety. um, I've been working hard on my anxiety the last few years, and I mean reducing my anxiety and figuring out what was causing my anxiety, getting to the root of it, and um, practicing reducing anxiety and stress in my life. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Some of the things that I did in my own life, because I don't think it can ever be eliminated. I feel all zen and, top of the mountain and, like a monk in a monastery sometimes. But most of the time, the stress and anxiety will come creeping in, and it's about learning how to manage that, right? Learning how to not let it completely overtake my entire life. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Um, First of all, I started this campaign of facing my fears. And so that was a part of where my stress and anxiety lay sometimes, was stress or anxiety about doing usually something new or something I was uncomfortable with, stepping outside my comfort zone, like, anxiety and stress about starting a new podcast, for example. And so the way that I like to deal with that stress is to confront and dive into the deep end with whatever it is that is causing me stress, anxiety, fear, right? Whatever it is that I'm scared of, I just run towards it. And I know that's not for everybody, right? But it's real immersion therapy where I just keep doing the thing that scares the shit out of me until it no longer scares the shit out of me. So a lot of times things like, starting a podcast like I've done, once I just start doing it, then the anxiety just naturally reduces because it's less scary. Now I know what it's about and I know what it takes, etc. So first of all, facing fears is one angle that I took at this, and it's multifaceted, right? There wasn't one magic pill or one thing that I did that was like, oh man, my anxiety is gone now. It was a multi-pronged approach, and so that was the first prong. The second one is realizing how often my mind would think about either the past or the future and not stay in the present moment, in the now, right? Very, very Buddhist, very Zen. That was a new concept to me. And once I was aware of that, I was like, holy shit. I'm thinking about the future a lot, and it's usually not good. It's usually me doom casting. It's usually my mind creating the most ridiculous scenarios that are definitely going to happen. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. And then it never does. Right. So I started realizing that we just tell ourselves these stories, right? How much of what I believe is just a story that I've told myself, or a story that I read somewhere or heard somewhere or was told by somebody, and I latched onto it and just started believing it. It's just a story that I've chosen to listen to, right? And so once I started framing it that way in my own mind, I started realizing, okay, looking into meditation, looking into learning how to control my mind, control my emotions, and be more balanced, those sorts of things. Very Eastern, very Eastern. But I started finding that these are some of the tools that I use to help me reduce the stress and anxiety, and training my mind, practicing all the frickin' time on staying in the present moment, not dwelling on the past, not dwelling on what she did to me, or like that, how I was raised, or or what that person, all of the things in the past that we dwell on. A lot of victimhood in that too, on a side note. But woe is me, life is so terrible, here's a long list of all of the things that have happened to me that are bad, etc. um Choosing to view them, listening to the story in your head about choosing to view them in a negative light, you realize you're choosing to complain about that. You're choosing to let that thing get to you. You're choosing to let that thing bother you. You're choosing to dwell on it. That's what I had to remind myself. And I was like, well, okay, you got me there. You got me there. You got me there. And so I just started practicing not thinking about the future, because I realized it was almost always um, fear induced. And so I started practicing not thinking about the future. I even got so extreme as to stop thinking about, because I would find myself daydreaming all the time about what's for lunch. And then while I was eating lunch, I was daydreaming about, ooh, what's for dinner? Right? It's not even here yet. Why aren't I enjoying this bomb diggity sandwich that I'm eating right now? Why can't I stay in the present moment, taste it, feel it, smell it, experience the sandwich, for example, rather than jumping my mind to some future event about what am I going to eat next after this? Right? Just about savoring the present moment. That was a huge leap ahead for me. I have the voice in my head that I call Hal. Hal's a real chicken, if we're just being honest. Hal's the voice in my head that's always doom casting, that's always saying, well, what if this happens, and what if that happens, and I don't know, it might not work out. That's Hal. Let me introduce you to Hal. Maybe you have Hal residing in your brain as well. Um, Hal's also telling me that I can't do things, that I'm not good enough, that people don't like me, that I'm overweight, that I'm ugly, that it's blah, 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 right? That's Hal. And part of this whole mind training exercise was recognizing that I'm not Hal and Hal is not me. Hal is a separate thing that is riddled in fear, right? And is all it's the reptilian part of my mind in some regard, right? It's trying, Hal's trying to keep me safe, right? Societal structures, and trying to not get me ostracized and uh, exiled from the pack. It's reptilian, fight or flight type stuff, right? But Hal is very primitive. How is always thinking about the future and the past. And so it's about learning to control how. Because my whole life, I realized upon lots and lots of reflection, lots of looking inward, lots of analyzing, I came to the conclusion that Hal was running the show my whole life. I thought that I was Hal. I was real confused. Hal had taken charge. Hal was behind the wheel. And that's why I was always so stressed and freaked out all the time. Because that guy was behind the wheel, driving me to crazy town. And once I realized that I had the ability that I had power over Hal, that's when I started taking back control of my mind and saying, nope, sorry, buddy, you're going to sit in the back seat. In fact, better yet, get in the trunk, right? Like, your services are no longer needed here. Please and thank you. And it felt really good to grab that wheel and take it back. But then Hal would inevitably make his way out of the trunk, sneak into the back seat, sneak into the passenger seat, and next thing you know, he's whispering in my ear again, going, oh, I think we're going the wrong way. And it's like, Hal, where did you come from? I thought I put you in the trunk, buddy. Get out of here. Get out of here. So I learned to stop listening to him, because the more I tried to control Hal, this was a whole process, right? I'm just walking you through it, but I tried to control Hal. I tried to, like, envision me putting, my boot down on him and stomping him and kicking him and get the fuck out of here. I hate you. Get out of, you're ruining my life and shut the fuck up and all this stuff. Real violent, working through a lot of anger, apparently. But I had a lot of I hated Hal. I saw Hal as the enemy, and that as a process I had to go through, and perhaps you have as well, or haven't yet. But like it's real fun. But the next level of that was recognizing that Hal is a part of me, and I had to start loving that son of a bitch. That was not an easy process because I had spent so long fucking hating him and realizing like, how long have you been residing here in my mind? And like, get the fuck out of here. But it's about, no, it's about integrating Hal. It's about integrating that shadow aspect of myself, yin and yang situation. It's about balancing it and loving it and integrating it. There's alchemy in there. There's, lots of metaphors, all the metaphors. Integrating Hal into my system. And just being able to stay ahead of him, right? I know what his antics are. I know where he's coming from. He's just scared and he just wants to keep me safe. So when he starts yakking about, we're going the wrong way, you're doing the wrong thing in life, you need to start doing this, you're not good enough, you'll never be able to do that, I say, oh, Hal, that's cute. That's cute. I'm going to turn up the radio now. I want to listen to some music, but thank you for talking. Love you. That's how I talk to Hal now. I don't beat him up. I just pat him on this head and say, you cutie, you just keep being you, but I'm going to listen to the radio now, and just ignore him. It worked out really well for me because he never goes away. That's the whole thing. I tried to eliminate him, kill him, destroy him, bleep him, all of these things. I don't know what bleep him means, but I guess you can fill in the blanks there. Um, um, he never goes away. That's the whole point. That's what I had to come to grips with, is like, I can't eliminate this bastard. And so it's about accepting the darkness, accepting that shadow aspect of myself, accepting its purpose, thanking him for his purpose. Thank you for keeping me in check all these years, even though you're a terrible driver, buddy. But thank you. You served me well, but your services are no longer needed. I repeat that phrase often. I less often than I used to, honestly. So it's working. Your services are no longer needed. Thank you. Love you. Thank you. Bye. Because he was always doom casting about the future, all of these scenarios that were supposedly going to happen to me that were really keeping me up at night, creating a real big knot in my stomach and my neck, and causing all these physical issues, as stress does. So it occurred to me like, okay, let's start keeping track of this shit here. I'm currently scared to death of whatever the situation currently is. Fill in the blank. Hal is telling me it's not going to work out. Everything's going to fall apart. We're fucked. That's his message. But Spirit brought it to my attention to start keeping tabs of this stuff. Analyze it like a scientist would, right? Okay, I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to pay this unexpected bill that I got, for example. Hal's telling me it's not going to work out and we're completely fucked. Let's just see how this plays out. And it's not to say that I wasn't freaking out the whole time as it's playing out, as I'm waiting to see, like, is this going to work out or not? Hal says it's not, but like, let's just put this to the test. And so I would just let it evolve, let it unroll, let it unfurl. And it didn't mean I wasn't, freaking out or crying or, pacing back and forth or taking long walks, just trying to not panic and not freak the fuck out, even though I am freaking the fuck out because I don't know how I'm going to pay that fucking bill, for example. Have you been there before? I have. And then it works out. One way or another, call it a miracle. I have a broad definition of miracle. It's something highly what am I trying to say? Um shoot, what the heck am I trying to say? Something that is highly improbable. Thank you. Something that's highly improbable that is of great benefit to you. That's a miracle. And I've had many miracles in my life. Something that's highly improbable. It's like, well, okay, didn't see that coming, but thank you, divinity. Thank you, divine hand guiding my life. That I don't know how that worked out, but thank you. That happened at the last frickin' second, right under the wire, but thank you. That's a miracle. I've experienced many miracles, and I expect many more to come. I expect miracles nowadays. These last minute swoops and saves from the cavalry coming in and saving the day. It's happened more times now than I can count. But we forget about these little miracles. And you don't have to call it a miracle, but these coincidences. Call it whatever you want. But there's something at play here. I started questioning, does it really always work out? And I started keeping track. I started keeping a real close eye on these things. Like these events would happen in my life, and I was like, okay, well, let's just see how this works out. Universe, like I can't fucking see how. Oh, it worked out. Okay, well, didn't expect that. But and sometimes it takes a while. It doesn't happen when I expect it to. Often, almost always. But it always works out. I started keeping track, and I started like actively trying to think of times when it didn't work out, the real tough times in my life, or the real big hurdles, or the real challenging fucking times in my life. I started thinking like, did it work out? And the answer was like, yes. Yes, I racked my brain to think of a time it did not work out, and I honestly, genuinely couldn't. Now, that's not to say that there weren't challenging or difficult things that happened in my life. That's inevitable and not what I'm talking about. But it's after the challenge, after the lesson is learned, or after divinity shows me what I needed to see in that series of events, whatever it may be, it worked out. And I know that you may have a voice in your head telling you it didn't work out, or I'm not here to convince you of anything. You don't have to believe what I'm saying. People have had many terrible things that happen in their life. I get it. Well, didn't work out when so and so died from cancer, did it? Didn't work out when this tragic event happened or that tragic event. Explain to me how that worked out. But I think that that's looking at it from a human perspective. And I understand that perspective. But there are divine things at play. There's a larger picture at play. It goes deeper than the surface. And I think we tend to see the tragedy on the surface, the difficulty and challenge on the surface. But when we dig deeper, we can see that there are other things at work here behind the scenes, energetically, spiritually, divinely, right? And so when I say it always works out, I mean, it always works out in a divine way, often in my benefit, I've found. Everything is I believe this is a part of the foundation of my beliefs as well, is that I believe that everything always happens for a divine reason and for a purpose, even though I can't understand it or comprehend it often. I believe that everything happens for a reason. So these tragic events, they happened for a divine reason. There's these cycles of death and birth, and then death and rebirth. It's this whole cycle, right? I mean, we're not meant to live in a perfect world. There are going to be ups and downs. These are the cycles and patterns. And so um, when these waves of anxiety, these cycles and patterns of anxiety and stress that come up in my life, I like to think I'm very good at seeing patterns. And so I see these patterns of, okay, I'm getting stressed at the same thing every frickin' time it comes up in my life. How do I address it? These are the ways I address it. Because recognizing it is huge. It was for me. Because I just couldn't see it, even though it was right in front of my freaking face. Because Hal is yakking so loud 24/7, 24/7 that I couldn't, you know, wade through it all. It's overwhelming. That's where meditation comes in, is silencing how? Silencing my mind, my thoughts. Once I put a mute on those thoughts, even for 4 seconds, which is where I was at when I started meditating in the beginning, right? 4 seconds of silence is like, holy shit, I've never experienced that before in my life, and it felt so good. How can I get more of it? I didn't realize that there was this constant noise. It reminds me of I saw this documentary on the whales in the oceans and well sea life in general, with all of our boats that humans have going through the oceans and all of the noise we have everywhere through the motors and the vibrations on the water. It's freaking out the animals. It's screwing up the whales and their communication, and it went on about that. But it reminds me of just this constant noise. They think that's why the whales are beaching themselves, because they just want to get away from the fucking noise. And that's how I feel in my mind. My thoughts, how is just constantly yakking. And when I meditated for the first time and started hitting mute for those short periods, I was like, holy shit, it feels so good to like not have that constant fucking dialogue in my mind. So anyways, once you start practicing and learning to mute that guy, then you stop thinking about the future a little more often. You stop thinking about the past a little more often. You start taking charge a little bit more often, right? It's not to say that Hal's not going to try to grab that wheel, and it's about saying, no, no, cutie. Remember, we don't do that. I'm in charge now. That's what I tell Hal. And so I actively made a list. I literally made a list of all the times that I was scared and how it worked out. Because visually, I wanted to see, like, okay, there's a track record going on here. There's a pattern of the universe always fucking taking care of me, of a divine being looking out for me, guiding me through this shit, causing these miracles in my life. And so part of that journey for me was cultivating a faith and a trust in the divine and in the unknown, right? Doing these new things, stepping outside my comfort zone, thinking in new ways, right? Letting the divine lead me and guide me, and trusting the divine, trusting that God isn't going to fuck me over, like Hal is telling me he's going to. And I'm like, Hal, we're going to just play this thing out and see how it works out. Okay. I mean, I hate to prove it to you again. I don't want to say I told you so, but get ready for it, bud. Because it's coming. And he's like, well, we'll see about that. And Hal's like crossing his arms, getting all huffy about it. And then it works out. And I look over at Hal and smile. And he's like, don't fucking say it. I know. Okay, I know. These are the conversations I have with the voice in my head, guys. Don't you call me crazy. I'm not crazy. It's about learning faith and trust in God. It's about cultivating that relationship with the divine. Because my whole life, I grew up Christian, like I yak about all the time. I thought I had a relationship with God and I had a personal relationship with him and all that. But at the end of the day, I didn't trust him. I thought that I did. If you asked me, like, do you trust God? I'd say, oh yeah, of course I trust God. Like, what do you mean? But when it really came down to it, the nitty gritty, when the rubber hits the road and there's a really fucking challenging thing in my life, I listened to Hal my whole life. And I was like, well, maybe God's going to get me through this, but like, I need to figure my shit out because we're going under. And I would scramble and I would freak out and I would panic. I would try to control the situation. Upon reflection, that never worked out too well for me. That was stressful. So what I did was stop doing that. Slowly, eventually, baby steps. I'm making it sound like it happened overnight. Of course it didn't, but I wanted to cultivate a better relationship of having faith and trust. What does it look like to have 100% faith and trust in the divine to lead me and guide me and not fuck me over? And so I started asking God, the divine, to give me situations and scenarios intentionally to throw me screwballs so that I could practice having more faith and trust. And there were times when I really regretted requesting that from God. There were times when I was like, why the fuck did I ask for that? Like, what the hell am I doing? Because I would get some screwballs. And then I was quickly reminded, lovingly reminded from the divine that, hey, 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 you asked for this. This is just a low ball. This is not a fast ball. It's not a screwball. You can choose to see it that way because you're freaking out. But like, you got this. Trust and have faith, and I'm going to walk you through this. We're going to do it together, and it's all going to work out. And I was like, yeah, but I can't see how it's going to work out. Like, can't you understand? Like, I don't see how this. And I would do that for weeks or months, or depending on what the situation was. Just like, yeah, well, I mean, hello, you said it was going to work out. It's only been 6 hours. Like, how come it's not working out yet? Just tapping my watch, going, hello, don't fuck me over here. Just like pacing back and forth. Um, and then it worked out. And God was like, see, we're all just practicing here. Okay. Baby steps. That was another baby step. You did a great job. We're building faith and trust. I came through like I told you I would. Right? I'm going through a big one of those. I took a giant leap of faith a couple of years ago, which I talked about. Um, I'll go into a different episode, but giant leaps of faith that led me down a really crazy path. And it was all about building faith and trust in the divine, faith and trust in the unknown, faith and trust that when I step outside of my comfort zone, I will be rewarded. I will come out of it stronger, bigger, better, more faith. My faith and trust muscles are just going to be I'm going to have a six pack of faith and trust when this thing is done. But it's because of these challenging times that were excruciating to go through. Like, I don't want to brush over that and say like, yeah, tough times are hard and all, but it always works out. Like, let's take a minute to not brush over that. These times are excruciating, where it strips you down to your very core, questioning everything, questioning your own sanity, questioning if you're on the right path, the wrong path. Have I fucked up? What do I do? How do I But practicing taking that breath, because it's the mind that's panicking, that's freaking out. It's about like, training a wild horse. Just as if I know about that, I don't. But um, you know, training it to just slowly calm the fuck down. Easy, buddy. Easy, 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 easy. No need to panic. Okay? It's all going to work out. Let's, rather than thinking about the future, let's take a pause and let's dwell on the past, but let's dwell on all the times that it worked out. Let's recite them. Let's chant them. Let's make it into a mantra if we must. Let us remember these times that it worked out and use them to reignite that fire within us of faith and trust that it's going to work out again this time. Just like it did last time, and the time before, and the time before, and the next time, and the next time, and the next time. It goes both ways. It has always worked out, and I'm so thankful for that. I had to start to get myself to a place. It's very Buddhist, just accepting what is. Right? I had to get myself to a place, and this took lots of practice as well, of saying, I'm going to try to be okay if it goes my way. And I'm going to try to be okay if it doesn't go my way. I'm going to try to wrap myself around that, get myself to a space where I can deal with it emotionally. Not easy at first. But again, I asked the universe, give me practice, please. Let her rip. And the divine did not let me down. I was definitely given many, 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 many opportunities to practice letting whatever comes come and to be okay with it to the best of my ability. And I have to say, I've gotten pretty good at it because I've had a lot of practice. And it's always a skills sharpening deal, right? Like, it's not like a one and done, like I finally learned how to accept what comes and now like, oh, life is easy. I'm always throwing curveballs, and it's just more skills practice for me. And I practice thanking the universe too. Like, thank you for this fucking curveball, because it's just tightening up my skills, right? making sure I can keep that six pack going, right? Don't want to get lazy. So thanks for the curveball, universe. Keeps me strong, keeps me sharp, spiritually and mentally. And so I practiced accepting whatever the universe throws at me. Oftentimes I find myself, when something crazy happens to me that could be perceived as negative, but I choose not to view it as negative. That's a key part of it as well. I found myself just laughing, like, this is so fucking crazy this happened to me. I know the universe is doing this on purpose. So like, I see it. I see it for what it is now. Like, okay, I've dealt with this before. I've had a very similar scenario. So I'm just going to deal with it like I did before, right? Faith and trust. Okay, bringing out all the tools from my tool belt. Faith and trust that the divine is going to see me through this. Nothing lasts forever. Right? I have these mantras or sayings that I tell myself when I'm in the dark place. Right? When it gets rough or challenging, etc. And getting myself to a place emotionally and spiritually and mentally where I'm okay with it. Where other people look at my life and say, that's fucking terrible. That sucks for you. I choose not to view it that way. I get why people say that. That's fine. I get why I used to say that. The old me was like, this fucking sucks. My life is terrible. Why do these things always happen to me? Boo, 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 boo. I stopped talking like that to myself. Practice, 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 practice. This is all just rewiring of our brains. It's possible. That's why I'm sharing it. All this is possible. Anybody can do it. But it's not fucking easy. I'll tell you that right now. But I'm sick like that. I love a challenge. I run towards my fears. I enjoy. I've recently been playing Mario Wonder on the Nintendo Switch, which is just. I'm not really into video games, to be honest. I'm a huge fan of Tetris because I'm a prodigy, guys. I'm a Tetris prodigy. I'm not embarrassed to say it. It's one of my favorite games. But which is so interesting because I'm not I'm not very left brained engineering. I just feel like, kind of you have to have a certain mind to do Tetris. But anyways, I love Tetris. But other than that, whatever. I could take it or leave these games. But I was playing with my nieces, and I love the most challenging worlds, the most challenging levels. I will play that level until 3 a.m. as long as it takes until I beat that fucking level. Like I know it's possible. I know that I can do anything, and I enjoy challenging myself because what it does is we often have these limiting beliefs in our life. I had many limiting beliefs, such as I can't beat this level in Mario Wonder, right? Or that's too hard, I can't do that, right? We tell ourselves these things, it becomes our belief system, and then it becomes our reality. So once I started realizing that in a very real, literal way, we create our reality just with the things that we tell ourselves, right? The stories that we choose to believe. I could never be an entrepreneur. I'm not smart enough, or I don't have a business degree, or blah, 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 blah. It's all just stories we tell ourselves. Why do we listen to these stories? So I started creating new stories, new scripts for my mind to dwell upon all the time, right? Rather than thinking I'm a loser, I tell myself that I'm amazing. I had never told myself that before in my entire life. Rather than saying I'm a fat, lazy piece of shit, I say I'm amazing. Thank you for your opinion, Hal. Didn't know you thought so highly of me, but I'm amazing. Thank you very much. I will not listen to your slander. I am amazing. So I start telling myself these new things. I can do anything. I can literally do anything. And then I repeat it, say 5,000 times a day until I start to believe it. We're so easily programmable. So I started doing the programming. I became a spiritual programmer, rewiring myself. this is also part of spiritual alchemy, which I could dedicate a whole episode to in itself. But spiritual alchemy talks about this spiritual alchemical process that some of us choose to undergo, right? Of just the stripping away of things that no longer serve us, such as the old script, the old programming, peeling those layers away, letting them fall to the ground, reconstructing yourself, and then rinse and repeat, doing it all over again, stripping away, rebuilding. It goes with the cycle and pattern of rebirth, like I talk about too, of just letting old parts of yourself die, metaphorically, such as the programming, letting that shit fall to the wayside. It doesn't serve me anymore to have anxiety like that. How can I strip that shit away? And I roll up my sleeves and I get to work. And it is labor intensive. It's so emotionally draining and exhausting, and mentally and spiritually, the whole thing. It's a rough road, but I feel like because of this hard work, this dedication that I've given to going within and doing the digging, right, doing the manual labor within my own heart and mind, putting in the hours, endless hours of you know, training myself. This is how I reduce anxiety and stress in my life. That's why I share this with you. These are the things that work for me. And it's all an ongoing practice. There is no becoming the master. That's ridiculous. That's ego. Not to say that there aren't masters out there that are, you know, who knows? It's about perspective is what I'm getting at. But I see myself as a constant student, and there is no achieving. There is no mountaintop. It's an endless journey, which seems exhausting when you think about it in one way. Like, endless journey. Well, what am I fucking working on all this for if it's not going to be permanent? Well, such is life. I think that that's what some of the purpose is here for this incarnation in the 3D realm, is to go through these things, to experience these things, right? For me, a lot of it is breaking free from the cycles, breaking free from these patterns. It's also very Eastern of, what is it, samsara or whatever, the, you know, breaking free from patterns of karma and reincarnation and the life and, you know what I'm saying. Um, and so a lot of this, I think, is breaking free from those old patterns and cycles that I perhaps had in many reincarnations, right? That even past versions of myself in this lifetime is so different from who I am now. I've shed those past versions of myself, and in many ways, I don't even recognize them. And those people who have known me my whole life, I'm talking about family, of course, is I've completely changed. um, in a good way, because I feel like I've peeled away all of those layers of myself that were insecure, that were dealing with, jealousy and anger and addictions and all of these things that just weren't working for me anymore. So I dropped them eventually through lots of this work that I'm talking about. And I think that it's part of the reason why so many experience anxiety and stress like this. It's so prevalent in the world. Um, well, I lost where I was going with that. Is because it's hard work. That's what I was going for. It's hard work. It's not easy to reprogram. It's much easier to stay in our comfort zone, to just bury the fear, to ignore the fear, to not address the fear, which is behind all the stress. It's all fear. I believe there's two modalities in this world of ours, this binary world of ours, um, and it's love and fear, right? Love, acceptance, joy, peace, happiness are all in one. It's hard not to be binary or dualistic in this world, but um, as I'm thinking about it now, I mean, it is a spectrum and it is perspective. So I truly believe that it's, depending on love and depending on fear, it's all part of the same spectrum of the all that is, right? If we want to get, the Gnostics talked about this. I talked about Gnosticism in the last episode if you're interested, and some of their belief systems around God. Check that out. But they believed everything was a spectrum, that there is no hot and cold. It just sort of depends on your perception of what is hot and what is cold and your opinion, right? There is no good and evil. It's all a spectrum. It sort of depends on your perspective. So, love and fear are also on the same spectrum. But oftentimes it's easy, as I just started to, is to lump these things into two categories of love and fear. But of course, it's a spectrum. But um, yeah, I think that I wonder if our ancestors. I talked about ancient civilizations and pre-flood civilization, right? I think that there were these advanced beings, whether they were uh, divine beings or Anunnaki or just more advanced humans. I'm curious if they sort of had a grasp on these things that we're talking about, this sort of esoteric knowledge about how to uh, deal with the mind, right? Deal with consciousness and deal with these ideas of breaking free from these cycles and patterns. And I wonder if they, some of the knowledge that the Egyptians had from allegedly Atlantis before the flood, this ancient knowledge that seems to have been passed down and is only available to those with eyes to see and ears to hear, right? Because I remember old past versions of myself in this lifetime. I didn't understand any of this shit. If I heard somebody talking about, going within and reprogramming your mind, and I'd think like, this guy's fucking crazy. Like, what the fuck is he talking about? Uh, but now I feel like my eyes have been opened. In the Bible, it always reminds me of, um, I think there were several accounts of this happening, but somebody being blinded in the Bible. Maybe it was Saul, I think, but I think there are others. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not a theologian, guys. Um, the scales falling from your eyes, and now you can see anew, right? See with fresh new eyes. I think it's meant to be taken metaphorically. And so I was given I feel like the scales were taken off of my eyes and I could see anew, and I could see things in a new light that I'd never seen before. This is part of what I call my awakening in 2020, but it was just seeing things in a new way with a new, I believe, higher perspective. It's like, holy shit, how did I never see this before? It seems so obvious now, but I couldn't see it back then. So I don't know if you've had a similar experience in your own life, but I just feel like there's this ancient knowledge that is not necessarily meant for everybody, especially if you believe in reincarnation cycles, that perhaps they're not there yet, right? I wasn't ready for it until I was ready for it, whatever that means, right? I feel like the scales fall from our eyes when they're ready to fall from our eyes, when the divine makes it so. That's why I don't believe in planting seeds with people, or like intentionally trying to plant seeds to cram your agenda down their throat is what I'm talking about. This is just my perspective, of course, but I feel like when it comes to politics or religion or even spirituality, or so often we try to say like, well, I know they're not ready for it yet, but I'm just going to like try to lay it on real thick so that when they are ready, I'll have laid that foundation for them. I think that that's the human trying to control things, and I've stopped doing that in my life. Tried to, at least, I think successfully, but ask those around me, they might tell you a different story. But um, I don't see any advantage in planting seeds, because I feel like I wasn't ready to see or hear what I was ready to see or hear until a light switch was turned on within me, metaphorically, divinely, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, hi, where did all this fucking come from? Like, what? It wasn't because somebody planted a seed. It's because I was ready. That was the time. It happened then. Which also makes me question free will. I don't necessarily think we have free will. I think things just happen when they happen. But that's a different conversation. So I think that trying to raise people's consciousness or awaken the sheeple or whatever your agenda is going to fail. That's just my opinion. Because the people you're trying to convert or change or show the light or whatever it is you're trying to do, it's not going to happen until it happens. And it has nothing to do with your actions. They're ready for it when they're ready for it. So what I try to do in my own life is, rather than cramming ideas or agendas or ideologies or philosophies at people, I try my, if people want to have a philosophical conversation or something, that's a different story, of course. But like, I try to show it in my own life, rather than telling people, well, you should meditate more. What I would prefer to do is to show people that I can remain peaceful and calm in times of stress and tumultuous times. I would rather let people see me being calm and say, hey, I noticed that I would be freaking out if that happened to me. How come you're not freaking out? And then I can say, well, I've been practicing meditation. It's really been a useful tool in my life, right? Rather than cramming it down their throat. It's the same thing with religion. I would rather see a Christian, for example, I would rather see a Christian behaving as Jesus would behave, like helping a poor person or somebody pick up their groceries if they dropped in the parking lot or something along those lines, helping the less fortunate or whatever, right? Exhibiting love. I would rather see them exhibiting love than have them tell me that I'm going to hell if I don't accept Jesus in my heart. That's just my perspective. I don't know about you. And so I try to live my life that way. I try to live peacefully. I try to show. I just try to show it rather than say it. Right? Actions speak louder than words. Type of a situation. So. I think we'll leave it at that. I'm having such a good time recording these, and I'm loving having these conversations with you guys and interacting with you. I love hearing from you. I've got a lot of positive feedback from you guys lately, so thanks for that. Feels good. My ego is fucking loving it. So thank you. Glad you're enjoying the podcast. I feel like I promised myself, and I made a little deal with God that I would dedicate myself to doing these recordings and podcasts at least 6 months, to dedicate myself to it, because I found in my life I was kind of like jumping from, well, what about this, that could be cool, what about this, that could be cool, and the universe said, like, just fucking pick a lane and let's do this thing. So I chose my lane, and it feels good, and I feel like this is a part of my destiny. It's leading to something that isn't necessarily here yet, but it's building upon what I'm meant to be doing. So I just feel like I feel real in flow. I feel like I feel aligned when I record these things. It lights me up. Um, I'm always striving to do better and take little mental notes, tweaking this or tweaking that, or I'm really enjoying this. So I'm excited to see where this whole podcast leads, and I'm also enjoying interacting with you guys. So if you're enjoying what I'm doing here, I appreciate it if you could share this with like-minded individuals, those who have the eyes to see and ears to hear, perhaps. Um, so that we can have more conversations like this with more perspectives from different people. So I love hearing from you guys, and let me know if there's anything else you would like me to talk about, any topics that you'd like me to dive into or elaborate on or hear my thoughts on. Until then, I hope you have a glorious day. Love you. End transmission.